And we begin. Good day, everyone. I am going to be mindful and speaking louder because in watching these videos, I noticed that my audio wasn't really acceptable for me. And I'm seeing this sound bar or this sound meter here at the bottom of this deal. And I will look to stay in the middle of that. Nonetheless, I appreciate everyone who is able to tune in with this live feature as I detail my experiences from childhood Christianity to where I am now. And I will preference this stream with saying I am holding my cuboctahedron. In order to get more details on this, definitely dial in to the link that is under parental alienation for this channel. The title where it is basketball dash life. And I speak about this in the opening monologue of that. So yeah, as we dial in, I won't rush into it. As always, great to allow the space to breathe, open up. I'm not in a hurry. I'm on my own time, which is divine timing. In fact, I'm actually outside of time, but that's another topic. I move at my pace. Always have to the best of my accord because when we're younger, of course, for the most part, we're going to do with our parents, guides, instructors, what they tell us to do for the most part. So there's always that one or two in a bunch who will be deviant per se and act on their own accord. But for the most part, I was quite model. And yeah, yeah. So that's where we are. Beautiful day, at least by my standards. The temperature is currently, last I checked, it was around 41 degrees. It's 43 right now in what's most commonly known as Fort Collins, Colorado. I say most commonly known because when I'm in an area, I just cannot go on another man's name or woman unless I know you personally. And when we research Fort Collins, we know that it is named presently, commonly, after William O. Collins, which leads me into our ancestors. We tend to know more or honor or acknowledge others' lineages more so than ours. For example, if I were to ask, what is your great great grandmother's maiden name or even full name, would you be able to tell me that? Now, by that same token, how would you feel if your great great grandchildren did not know a speck about you? Now, you may say, well, I won't be here to know. And I would say, that's not the question. The question is, how would you feel if that were the case? Take your present state, how would you feel? I know how I would feel. And that is some of the reason why I am doing these streams because I have an obligation to myself, numero uno, and also to my lineage. I want to do the things that I can within reason to show them that, hey, I stood for something. It's easy for me to not get on this deal live In a sense, it's easy. You would think that, but for me, it's a little opposite because with the potential abilities, etc. Again, no matter how many eventually tune in to watch this, whether it's 1 or 1 million, if I am capable and able to do something, then I have to ask myself, why am I not doing it? Who is it benefiting that I am not doing it or that I am doing it? Who's benefiting from it? Fulfilling my heart. That is going to be the theme of, that is the theme of most of my existence since I can remember. And that is what this stream is about for the most part, is going back to early childhood or just childhood in general, speaking about my thoughts within the church, Christianity, God, Jesus, the whole nine. As a minor disclaimer, because we know how things can be chopped in pieces, like right now, currently, no one is on the stream. That's fine. I even asked my children to refrain from watching while I am live so that I won't get a misrepresentation of what's truly going on, the numbers. And also, they are doing their perpetual home education. We, as a few years ago, decided to do what was best for us, and that did not include foreign curriculum. So we're on an ancestral model and we learn accordingly. We, as in collectively, as our ancestors stated, the day that you don't learn is a day that you don't live. So learning is a must. And with the twins, or even my oldest child, Alyssa, which amazingly, my oldest child, Alyssa, and her younger siblings, maybe youngest, I'm unaware, at least from paternally they are. Her paternal youngest siblings, and I mean that with respect, are they have the same birthday as her. On top of that, Atoya, their names are Atoya, Atoiah, and Wiltoy, Wiltoi. With Atoya, even as a twin, she weighed the same amount as Alyssa when she was born. Different moms, same day, different year. That I just take that as quite amazing. I mean, how many people can say 3 or 6 of their children have the same birthday? How many people can even say that they have 2 plus children in this day and age, that they're actually around parenting? Not many. Which brings me to a segue to speak about our ancestors. Now, when we hear the term ancestors, that is not a general term. We mentioned the great great grandmother. In my instance, I am only 4 generations removed from enslavement. And my granddaddy, grandparents, all 4 of them, I spent quite a bit of time around them. They know me really well, and I had the luxury of getting to know them likewise. They had a combined 25 children. The first 3 on my maternal side transitioned at during when they were, at birth per se. I don't really like to say birth because I know the legitimate meaning with that, but for context, we'll say birth for now. When they entered this realm, they immediately transitioned. The first three. So, of course, I never physically got to meet them, but my overall, he had 14 after that. One transitioned in one child transitioned in the early 90s. And aside from that, we're all still alive as far as his children. My mom, aunts and uncles on the maternal side. And he was born in the 20s, he and his wife. His name was Stonewall. His name is Stonewall Mays. Stonewall Webster Mays. And his dad was born just a few years after enslavement. So that's one. My mom is a generation, my granddaddy, his dad, and now we're in enslavement. But I want to pump the brakes because our first names, this is esoteric here, our first names tell us who we are. Our last names tell us who we were. And in the case of my maternal grandmother, her maiden name is King, King, royalty. Says a lot about our heritage. And my granddaddy, he is a Mays. And we know that our ancestors did not use vowels. That is a modern concept. So I liken that Mays to Mayas, which is essentially is defined as, you have the Mayan civilization that can be defined as illusion, Mayan illusion. And I have a daughter whose name is Amaya. So quite interesting there. And my grandparents, because of how they were raised yeah, how they were raised to believe in their particular belief system, as was my mom. So when it comes to religionists, Christians, Protestants, Catholics, Muslims, Hebrew Israelites, whatever sect that you identify with, whatever dogmatic cult, a child born wealthy doesn't know is wealthy. A child born poor doesn't know is poor. If you're born into something, then you won't know if it's accurate, the accuracy of it, if you don't dial in deeper. And many of us do not dial in deeper. And we hold on to things that we feel may have our best interest, and that can range from many things. Like Santa Claus. That's a great example. Let's start right there. Some of us have mundane Santas. Some of us have heavenly or sky Santas. In this instance, we're speaking of the mundane Santa. I was that child. We all had one. In what is it called? Elementary, who would question Santa? I remember I was age 5 in Holly Springs, Mississippi. We were in a brown Mazda truck, stick shift. My mom was driving, and I asked her, I say, Mama, how can Santa come to our home, especially the fact we don't have a chimney, and people all over the planet in an split of an instance, because that would be the time it would take for every child's wish to be fulfilled. Now, keep in mind, I was 5 and there was no Google or Chat GBT then. And that's when I got the news that Toy is I forget the exact thing that she said. I believe fairy tale. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but let's just say I learned that Santa. I got confirmation that Santa wasn't real on that day. I did do that. So that led me to configure that this may not be the only thing children are misled by. So, of course, naturally, I asked about the tooth fairy, and I haven't had a dollar under my pillow since. And that led me to asking about even higher truths, although I needed to be methodical about it. I even asked my mom, I remember the exact location. How did I get the nickname Toy? TOI. What made you want to nickname me Toy? And I'm summarizing here because I stated this to her about a year or two ago, and the wording wasn't exact, and she quickly corrected me on that. So I'm going to say this is paraphrasing here. Okay. She I entered this realm from her womb because that is the only way that me or anyone hearing the sound of my voice has came anyone with a soul who can hear the sound, because there are a lot of clones out there, so and droids, so we need to be mindful of that. Anyone who has a soul entered this realm through their mother. Now, you would think that in using the Gregorian calendar, 2023, that I would not have to make such a statement. But if we look around and see the state of affairs, that needs to be said. It needs to be mentioned, to say the least. Being born or entering this matrix, this realm that we call Earth, on December 21st, 1985, winter solstice, shortest day of the year, of the Gregorian year. When I say year, I will specify, unless specified otherwise, I'm speaking Gregorian. She being a Christian, remaining a Christian, that's why I need to say this as well. I have nothing against anyone with a particular belief system as long as they are doing their all to live by what they say they believe in and not being hypocritical. That includes judging, lying, cheating, or even doing things that you know are distorted just to say that I will be forgiven because I believe. I mean, if you can't see that for what it is, then keep learning. Keep learning. She nicknamed me Toy because I was born 4 days before the 25th of December. And she said that I was God's gift to her. I was age 5. So when she said that, I have my questions, and I dare not to ask them aloud when it comes to God, and that's okay. We can be right in what we believe. And I said, regardless of what I believe, I love my mother, and she's well known in the community. We have strong family ties with my grandparents, both sides. We're pretty decently known in the town collectively. I said, I cannot let my mama down. If she believes that I am a gift from God to her, then I shall uphold that. And that's something that carries me on to this present moment. And that's where I would say that religion, depending on how it's carried out, like anything, can be a negative or a positive, or it can be neutral, like anything. And considering her upbringing, her parents' upbringing, her parents' upbringing, quite naturally, that would have been induced upon me as well. But the difference, what separates the generations in this instance was technology and the ability to read, because I went to church at age 5 and 6. I mean, I remember, again, all these people are still living. I remember reading the Bible in Bible class because the adults couldn't not, they were virtually illiterate. And I'm thinking to myself, again, I dare not say this aloud. How can you believe in something or even know in something and you can't even read what it says? You're asking a 5 or 6 year old to read for 5 or 6 year old to read for you. Let me see. I see we do have. Let me see. I think I'm on. Okay, okay. I'm still learning this thing. You're asking a 5 or 6 year old to read for you, so that means you never read it. And if you can't read, then I mean, imagine going to, I say, a hospital and allow somebody to perform an operation on you that has never read a book or couldn't read. I would not feel, appreciate that, family. I see you in the building. Nice seeing you, family. I would not feel comfortable in allowing that surgeon per se to operate on me if that was the case. And as a child, I really didn't feel comfortable in allowing someone to teach me about a text that they could not read. And with complete myrrh, MR, again, our ancestors did not use vowels. Myrrh means cultivating love. It's an ancient Kemetic term meaning cultivating love. With myrrh, I asked my mom specific questions when we got into the car, and which again, that's okay. That is the nature of how she was right in what she believed. That is the nature of how they were raised, and if they ask any questions about anything, that plus worse will likely happen to them. So that uh, kind of really put me in a position to just speak internally more so than externally. So much so that people probably felt I was a mute. So that's age 5. And I was quite disinterested in church. And we're speaking about Monday night choir rehearsal, Wednesday Bible class, Sunday program 1 at your home church, program 2 somewhere else likely, and there's usually program 3. And by that time, I was tapped just even getting in the car. I didn't want to really do it. And in church, I would lay down, I would be asleep, and I would sometimes, I could pretty much sleep. They didn't really say much about that, but I just questioned things Because in living by the Bible, how can we be so holy on our knees in the church? But as soon as we step outside, and I say we collectively, we have a cigarette in our hand, we're drinking, gambling, cussing, and I'm like, that's a polar opposite of what we just went through in there. So that's hypocritical to say the least. And I have my questions on that because I know hypocrisy is shunned upon within the scriptures. So as time went on, I asked God because we had a song that said Jesus is on the main line. Just call him and tell him what you want. Now I take things literally. So I picked up the phone. I said, let me get the main line. I didn't hear anything. We had the dial phones back then. This was the mid 90s for context. So I put the phone down because nothing was coming through. And I just asked in my head aloud, I said, God, if you're real, speak to me like you spoke to Moses. Speak to me like you spoke to Jesus. Because if I am one, I'm asking that. If you're my father, I should be able to ask you a question like, where's my mother? If you can speak to those beings, then why can't you speak to me? We're all your sons according to the text. So how am I not worthy of a conversation? And that's when I was about 6, 7, maybe 8, somewhere in that range. My brother and I were watching TV. Now imagine behind me, rather than this wall decor, it was a window. And behind that window, because we were in the house, there was a window, and about, I say 20 yards behind this window, there was a huge tree. I'm speaking about humongous, because the area that we moved when I was a child, around the age of 4 or 5, it was a forestry area before our home was built there. So there were a lot of trees. It was a rural area. And this particular huge tree did not get cleared out. So as my brother and I, again, he's right beside me. He's 4.5 years younger than me. He doesn't have any recollection of this. But the TV was in the middle of us, more about 3 feet ahead as we were sitting on the couch. And I heard a loud sound, and lightning came right between. It was on this side, my brother and I. It split us. It electrocuted the TV. My mom was home. She was in the room. Came and got her. I still have that smell in my memory this instance. Can never get it away. I was less than, say, 6 inches from actual lightning. And I, being me, I'm like, I wasn't fearful or anything, but I said, well, God, if that's you, you still didn't say anything. Like I didn't hear you. Like, great sign. I appreciate it. I remember the burning bush, that particular scripture. And you spoke to him. You spoke to, who was that? That was Moses, I want to say. I think that was Moses. Yeah, you spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai with a burning bush, but all I see is lightning. So I still have questions. And that's when I continued on, and I became 10. I remember this vividly because it was a quite turning point in my life, to say the least, when my parents were divorced. And we won't speak about faults or anything like that. But the question I asked myself was, if you are a religionist and you took vows, you made an oath to God per se, to remain together until death do you part, then why the divorce? Like that makes no sense to me, you know. And again, not placing blame, fault, or anything like that. This is my immature mindset at the time because if anyone, male or female or male, is going through any type of situation that they likely won't be able to overcome if they remain, then absolutely do what's best for you. My thoughts on marriage, well, I'm not married, nor have I ever been, nor I ever will be. And that's okay. Just like I don't knock someone for what they believe, marriage is in there as well. Some of my best friends are married. My mom has remarried. And that's your personal life. Do what fulfills your heart. That's not the context of how I live or even what this is. So in establishing that, it really hurt me because I was a family. I remain a family being. I love the unit structure, togetherness, and I felt the man should be in the home as well as the woman. And I was hurt. I remember crying. So I looked in the mirror, age 10, and that's when I gave a guide to my life. I made a pact with who I felt was God. I said, I'm hurt right now. I didn't say that specifically, but that's what I was feeling. And I said, this is what I want. I want a wife that looks like this, because I did want to get married at one point. I want children who are able to do this and look like this. I would like this type of career. I would like to make this amount of money. Now, this is a 10-year-old saying that. A 10-year-old has no concept of what they would need to survive as a 35-year-old economically, akin to a 10-year-old not having any concept of what they like, dislike on their body. Heck, I had some things I didn't like or dis, I had some things on my body that I didn't like, but not at one point did I want to go grab a knife and just cut it, or would my mom even let me do that. Like that's quite insane to say the least. It would have been poor parenting had she allowed for that if I said it. So I said all these things, and I said by age 35, and I'm going to steer clear of most things, but by age 35, if I have these things, then I will submit to you. I will speak your word to the best of my ability, and I will look to convert as many non believers as I can because you said in scripture, allegedly, that all I need is faith the size of a mustard seed, and I will be able to move mountains. I said, I'll do you one better. I give you the faith. I have faith the size of a tennis ball. And with that type of faith, I knew I'm going to get a conversation at that point. So during that frame, I still was having to go to church, and that's what led me to get a job. I hated church. I'm just gonna say it. I hated church. I hated the vibes, the feelings. It's just pretty much everything about it. It just felt uncomfortable to me. One of those things were a portrait on the wall. Now, being in a swarthy region, Mississippi, the Bible Belt, slave states. That's what it was called before the Bible Belt. They were slave states. In fact, they used the same Bible. We would, I was like, that is the most segregated day of the so called week. You have black churches, you have white churches, and that was it in my region. We didn't have Hispanics or anything like that. It was primarily, mostly so called black. I say so called because I don't identify with a color, and if we knew the legal term for black, it will only be ignorance to classify yourself as such. So, in speaking, general terms, so-called black, so-called white, that's where I seen most division on Sundays within the town. And we would go in our church and we would have a portrait. We all know this iconic portrait, the blonde haired gentleman who is looking up with this pose. The blonde hair, the blue eyes. And I'm like, hold up now, hold up now. Well, you're telling me that is the accurate depiction of the my brother who was called Jesus? Who knows what he looked like? Like who was there to even construct him? Eventually that was taken down. Eventually, So we seen it on the TV shows and all of that. But let's fast forward to now. I'm 15 and I get a job. I didn't tell my mama this, although she knew it because we moved at that point from age 10. I moved somewhere. We moved to, I didn't know it at the time, but it was Section 8 housing. I didn't know it, but I didn't want to be there. That environment is not something that I wanted to be in at all. And I knew I had to be the man of the house. At least I felt that way because obviously I was well, not obviously, I was the oldest, the eldest child of my brother and I. So my mama was the woman. I needed to be the man. So at 10 years old, I became a man. And I was doing things at age 10 that I'm grateful my children don't even know exist right now. And their ages 16, 11, 10, 6, and nearly one year. And they're oblivious to my upbringing for the most part. They learn through mediums as this. I do tell them certain things, but I'm just glad they don't have to go through anything that I've been through. So in turning 15, I got a job and it was at Baskin Robbins scooping ice cream at a service station in Holly Springs, Mississippi. And everybody wanted Sunday off so they can go to church. And I was sure to request that I work every Sunday. Schedule me first thing. You don't want to be there? I'd be happy to be there. So that was my out to getting away from church for the most part, as I worked most Sundays from age 15 until I left home officially and going to college. And then going to college, and I may, go in circles a little bit, but we're gonna get the full 360 and we'll cover every point. And going to college, Southern Miss, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, that was 4 hours away from Holly Springs. And I wanted to thank someone for the ride because that was 4 hours and I was alone. And rather than me saying thank you, God, because I didn't want to give credit to an external force that I did not have confirmation was legitimate, I would say things like thank you. Well, it wasn't things. I would say thank you, Rod. And I will also say that I trust you will show leniency on me for questioning these things because only a fool would believe everything you tell them without questioning. Now, if you've built enough credibility over time, over what we know as time, to say certain things to people and they trust it on a whim, great. But something of that magnitude of religion or just anything that I choose to question more, then I will. And pushing rewind here, when I was a child and used to get punished, now it wasn't severe, but the fact that, well, I can look back on it now and say it wasn't severe, but the fact that I would even get punished for asking a question, that showed me that, hey, this is a deeply rooted circumstance here. And I am going to claw and pull those roots. So in making it to these trips, 4 hours down, up, north, south Mississippi, you say, thank you, Rod. Thank you, Rod, for this day. And I also questioned that. I was younger saying this: God, if you're real, then how can I be penalized for acting integrally, knowing that I will reap what I sow? How can I be penalized because I'm questioning what was presented to me since I was in my mother's womb? How can we say, even in Christianity, like my mom designated herself as a Baptist, still to this day do, all myrrh, and my daddy was a Methodist. So but they're both Christians. So even in the same sect, there's so much division within those sects. What makes the Baptist so much more correct than Methodist or vice versa? Let alone Catholicism or Catholics, let alone Judaism, let alone Islam, or even the Mormons in the area that I'm in now. One truth generally, or even ever, would not have so much. It's not going to be a lot of subsects of the truth. Like, I'm a man. Now, I have masculine and feminine energy. That's negative and positive. However, I am a man. Well, how do I know I'm a man? Because I have masculine organs. That's how I know I'm a man. I know that when I was created, no mistake was made. In fact, how can you say your creator or your God is perfect and all knowing, and I'm born a man or you're born a man, but you say, hey, you know what? I'm really a woman. I'm not going to get into that, but this is needed. This is needed. So, in evaluating things, I felt, I didn't do anything to anybody. I mean, people know me now. I have a clean record. I mentioned this before. I didn't smoke. Not that smoking or drinking is evil. I'm not implying that. But if there was a such thing as a straight edge lifestyle, aside from girls, because I did, it was a young boy. I don't knock that. If I knew then what I know now, I would have preserved myself longer than what I did. Sure would have. Knowledge is a build. So in evaluating just everything in my life, I'm like, I haven't committed any evil. I don't do distorted things. And you're telling me that because I won't confess with my mouth and believe, knowing is greater than believe in thine heart that this brother of mine who won't even talk to me if I call his name, nor will my dad, y'all won't talk to me. You're telling me that I will have to burn eternally, even though I lived a righteous life. Whereas the beings that I'm seeing in church who are on their knees, who are getting the Holy Spirit per se, although I question that, they do beat their wives. They do distorted things to our youth. But because they get up there every Sunday or Wednesday and say they believe that they're going to have an automatic ticket, whereas me, all the righteousness I've done, just huge X, go burn. I don't know you. I disown you. I dismiss you. Go burn forever. Either it's common sense or nonsense. But even then, with knowledge being a build, there are some things I will profess. We learn things when we need to know them. Because if I knew those things then, I know for a fact I wouldn't have been where I am today as far as mundane accomplishments. I wouldn't have cared to get in basketball. I wouldn't have cared to ever work for anyone. I wouldn't have cared to do a lot of things. I probably wouldn't have cared to do this. But because I know what it was like to not know, I feel this is the least I can do, especially considering how many of us, the Christian or the religionist, I should say, depending on what scriptures, but it's quite consensus that ye shall not judge. Yet that's the first thing men in religionists tend to do. Who are you to speak on this topic? Have you been ordained by God? Like who are you to speak on God if you don't believe in Him? It's not a matter of belief. In fact, most non-religionists I know have read the Bible at least by 85%. I mean, I'm being generous here. Whereas most religionists I know their Bibles better than them. I'm like, if you read the Bible, then you probably wouldn't be a Christian either. But that's another story. But really, it's not. It's in the same context. We're brought up on fear. When you're fearful, you're easier to control. I mean, think about, and I don't have any animals, but think about puppies or a dog, an animal that you're looking to house sit. Well, how we grew up, they got beans. I'm like, man, why would you want to do that to an animal or anybody to just allow them to learn? Like, I'm sure it has to be another way, but that's what we know. In the South, it's ingrained, beating and abuse is, and it's in line with those texts, if you ask me. But nonetheless, so I'm going through life and I want to, be like my parents. I remember the conversation I had at age 10 to what I felt was God, who I felt was God, until I learned who I was really talking to. And I wanted to be married by age 20. And I was online for that. I was engaged by age 19. And things transpired from there. And I remember hearing and growing up in the church, nothing gets put on us that we can't bear. Let's say I was definitely tested then. Still am, but I'm over it now by a landslide. And I was thinking, like, why do the most horrific things happen to, let's say, good people? Because my mama, for example, my grandmama, my granddaddy, the ancestors, our relatives, our parents, they're really good. Like, they have great reputations. My granddaddy, Stonewall Mays, he didn't have any outside children, to my knowledge. I mean, he's very reputable. He didn't do anything to his daughters, which he had quite a few of them. And I asked them a year or two ago, a few of them, did anything ever happen to you as a child from your dad or even granddad? And my granddaddy, I learned, had a parenting model as me. Like me, for example, part of the reason is I don't want to change diapers. That's number one. Let me just say that. I don't want to do it. But another part of it is you can never say that I violated you as a child because I don't even care to see your area unless their mom is away and I have to do it. And even then, it's going to be monitored. And I don't go to the bathroom with the girls when they're being potty trained. I don't know. I don't have a feminine organ. I'm not equipped to really give any intel on the best upkeep for it, I just don't want to be touching my children in that type of way. Now, it's okay to do that. I just choose not to. I don't want them feeling any kind of way. So, and that brings me forward to the church again. Throughout my existence, and I'm grateful for this, I may not have spoken to many people, but people felt really comfortable in speaking to me. And the amount of girls didn't really hear from guys. We didn't have this conversation with guys. I know what happened to me by a religionist, and I kept that in, and that made my heart really heavy. It was fueled with hate, anger, aggression. It was very heavy. But when I learned that other girls my age or slightly older were telling me these stories, or I want to let me rephrase that, were giving me details on instances that occurred with them from religionists as well. That's where we get the polarities because religion can be both so-called good, bad, and neutral. In this instance, it was an abuse of power. That's a distorted deal. And when I was in the fifth grade, I seen girls come to school with a different fabric of pants on. Stomach was quite large, protruded, with a black line going through the middle. And I'm like 12 and wondering I knew what it was, but when I learned their co-creators were, I said, 1 plus 1 is not equaling 2. So we do a lot of things, and seeing what I've experienced within homes, what I know, we see many things that are kept behind closed doors. Fear keeps people from speaking up. I remember when I was younger, I didn't know any better. I wanted to protect the situations I was around. I called the police. And again, I didn't know any better. I'm not saying that was right or wrong. I just did what I felt was needed. But in doing that, I saw that there was no actions going to be taken, which I'm glad it didn't because that could have led to a whole nother. I wouldn't say I'm glad it didn't, but in knowing what I know now, I know that it's the experience that I needed to go through to learn the state of affairs and why things are the way they are. It's it's cultural, it's societal, it's regional based in a sense. And I don't want to get too far off topic here, but knowing I realized that a root to a lot of issues were hypocrisy. People did things by my estimation and even to now because they again felt that they were going to be forgiven for it, and I'm like internally thinking that's an easy way out. So when my situation occurred, that when I was about 20 had a child, and to this day 17 years later nearly, I'm still have that void. We have that void per se in each other lives. When that first went on, I was like, who would allow their child, I'm speaking about God right now, who would allow their child who's done nothing to anyone be stripped of what he loves? At the time, I love my children more than I love myself. I place children before me. I've always done that. And I felt I was right. I was right in what I believe. But now, being where I am, I know that self care is the best care. And when we're not our best self, we are a strain on someone else. So I needed that lesson. I needed that lesson. Most people who were aware of the scenario identified as religionist, but I never heard anybody, well, very few people speak up. So I'm like, if you are for righteousness, and that means you believe, if you believe in God, that means you believe in the devil. Now, if you're for good, then why would you let evil take place and not say anything? Why? That's hypocritical. If you are a soldier for me, because I'm your master, I'm God, speaking from a religious state of mind. If God is your master, then why aren't you fighting for him at every waking moment? Why? If you're not, then we're going to label that as hypocritical. It's akin to what I'm doing now because I know what spirituality is. Now, some of us, but I'm going to preface this statement. Some of us, we're all not going to be assigned to do the same thing. It's like basketball. A point guard, per se, is not going to be tasked with the same duties as the five man who cannot handle the ball well, generally. So, collectively, me knowing that I have a voice, it doesn't matter about my diction, it doesn't matter about my level of knowledge. What matters is I'm following my heart as I've always done and doing what I will want others to do for me if I was a child or if I did not have the full knowledge or understanding about a particular situation. Going more to the context of the church. I did not, because I didn't like church. Let's talk about two specific instances though. I was baptized at about age 9, which I heavily disagree with because one, you haven't lived life. Like you've had no legitimate temptations. How why should I wash my sins away and repent when I'm an innocent child that haven't done anything? I don't know anything. I'm pre-adolescence. Pre-adolescence. So what do I know? Yet I went in the water and they had what they call revival. Now, this is what made me at least believe in something because I was at Rising Star Missionary Baptist Church when this preacher was preaching, and he said, like, if you believe in your heart, confess with your mouth that Jesus died for your sins on Calvary, come shake my hand. And of course, it's customary in the South to be baptized young. If you're a Baptist, some of them do it. They call it a christening. As soon as you're born, like a week or so after you enter this matrix, they do the christening deal. That's what the Methodists do for sure. But I got baptized and I shook his hand and immediately started crying. I felt what I thought to be was the spirit. And I was about 9 for sure. My mom has pictures of it. The next time I felt what I thought, and it was the next time I felt what I thought to be was the spirit was when I would travel from, and look this up, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old to visit my daughter, Alyssa, to Holly Springs, Mississippi. That is a 4-hour trip. I was doing that every other weekend. And a lot of times those trips were blank, meaning I would do 4 hours, get there just for my co-creator, for some reason, not honor the agreement multiple times. So I was hurt to say the least, like very hurt, upset and angry as well. But the last time I went, I remember being in the police parking lot because we would meet at the police station. And there was a lot of tension there, to say the least. A lot of things transpired. So that was the meeting point. When my co-creator did not show that time, I felt the spirit again because I said, God, I'm giving this to you. Take this pain, take this hurt, take this sorrow off of my chest. It is too heavy. I'm living a double life. I'm living with a mask on. I don't want to be fake. I'm living a double life because I don't bring my issues to society. Like I'm not a victim. Like I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me. I have all my limbs, my mom, my children, oxygen, water, clean oxygen for the most part. Don't you have no need to feel sorry for me or yourself because if you're looking at this, you're in a decent position. Some of us are ducking bombs right now and bullets. We don't have to go out the country to see that. Go to Memphis, go to Chicago, go to LA, go to New York. So, one moment. Nice old hydrogen. Definitely check out that. Dial into the link. What was it? Basketball Dash Life to learn the benefits of molecular hydrogen. The link is in the description. So when I had that weight lifted off of me, I felt the spirit came and I wanted to release the hate. All of that was holding me back, going back to the mask, because out and about, people felt I had no problems. They didn't know what was going. I mean, a few people, and I mean less than 10, knew what was going on to an extent. They knew how much I was hurting. I would cry in front of them, but the masses did not know. I was jovial, make jokes, serious. That's what people labeled me as. I did my jobs, duties effectively. Always showed up on time. You really didn't know if you didn't know. So out and about, I'm this, but in the inside, I'm something else. And that was adding weight to me. But I still kept it in because ultimately, I can say this, no disdain for my co-creator or anyone that is real, anyone that is associated with my co-creator, because I'm aware of where things are on a higher level. And as I mentioned before, if it took me, because we sign contracts before, that's on a deeper level. But if it was up to me, that is something, I don't regret that happened because it's allowing me to do this right now. And before that, I thought it was just me. Just like the Christianity deal. Is anyone else willing to think outside the box? Because when you do think outside the box, you tend to be labeled. And that is another reason why I refuse to, well, I was mindful of who I had intimate conversations with or conversations in general. In fact, any conversation can be labeled intimate because it's from being to being. That's a form of intimacy. I didn't want to be labeled anything. And plus, I had to be perfect in the material world so that not perfect, so that nothing could be used against me in year 1 through 17, eventually, in my daughter's life. So not only am I being so-called perfect, let's say straight edge, for that situation, but I was doing it to honor my commitment to who I felt was God. Living a straight edge lifestyle. I didn't know the term then, but just you reap what you sow. So I didn't do anything to others that I didn't want done to myself. it's tough. It was tough, and that's why I stayed busy to keep my mind away from even exploring any other things. And my darkness came at night when I was at home. I was used to write a lot of poems. Used to write a lot. Used to call my great sister. She and I was actually born on the same day in the same room, and we're still close, really close. It's great, great sister, great mother, great friend, great all of the above. And that's why I know we all need somebody. And if I had not had her, because she was the one person I could confide in, I felt the one being that I could confide in who would not use it against me. I can be myself, and she wouldn't gossip about me. And I asked her, did she, even after the fact, years later? And she told me no. And for that, I'm grateful for her. Religion, church. I did not attend church from ages, let's say, that I can remember for the most part. 18 for sure, for a very long time. Like it was I didn't know. I was living life. Now, along with that, I also did not speak to my mom either. I did not talk to my mother much. I did not talk to anybody much. Why didn't I speak to her much? Because I was looking for answers that nobody else could give me. And I had, some disdain in my heart for the separation, for the divorce, which again is not her fault. And yeah, if she was my daughter, I would have been, I would have co-signed on that. And I mean that respectfully to both of my creators, because without my creators having the chemical formula of the alchemical makeup that they inherited, there's no me right now. Justification, well, excuse me, acknowledgement is not justification. Acknowledgement is not justification. So, because I felt that my parents lied to who they said they believe in, because when you have divorce, that means you're lying every day. And how I took it, I don't want to deal with a liar. So I just won't talk to you. And that's something, as I continued on my journey, what goes around comes around. You reap what you sow. Well, it's been X amount of years, and I haven't had a relationship with my oldest child. And that's me reaping, not justifying, that's me reaping, I feel, on a higher level, what I sowed. Because imagine how my mom felt. And let's talk about religion. But that's a part of the program and not making an excuse. But I felt the woman was the reason we're in this scenario anyway, because she bit an apple. And because she bit an apple, she has to bleed every month. She has to, uh, you know, go through a tough labor with a child. She's weaker. She is dumb, stupid. People actually believe this today, and I believed it as well. And that had an impact. Now, I respected women, but I also, hold on one moment. That had an impact on how I treated, on how I internally felt about women, because not in a negative way. I don't do anything disrespectful to them, but your word, even if you're my mama, you're still a woman. You're a woman. So no woman can tell me what to do. I'm the leader. I'm the man. I have dominion over every beast in the field and surely every woman. That's what the text told me. So how can I go away from the Bible? I mean, living literally. So as time went on, I'm living a life, doing things, just a lot of things, but keeping it in the context of religion. At age 35, I'm 37 now. Well, I really don't know how old I think I'm 37, maybe 38. I was born, I came into this matrix 12/21/85. I don't keep up with the numbers like that. I really, that means nothing to me. So I'm 37 or 38. I think I'm 37. At age 35, I experienced something for the third time. Well, let me rephrase that. I experienced something for the first time, but it was the third time that I felt a spirit. As I was laying in the bed, my knees were up like I had an iPad, or in this instance a phone, on my like lap area. My back was on the bed, my knees were cocked up, and I had this phone in my hand. And I have a witness, which is my younger five children's mother. She was directly beside me, and she could see things I couldn't at that point because I began convulsing like, and then the phone, which the bed isn't high from the floor, and I have carpet in this room. So if I were to drop this phone right now, it won't bounce up a lot at all. It just won't. How can it? Well, during this convulsion, this shaking, couldn't talk. My heart, like it just felt. I never felt that before, and it came from an area. It came from, and I'm in the basement where it happened. It came from that area there. It was I was probably 34. I was actually 34 because I was about to be 35. It was a few weeks per se before my birthday, which was, I learned, came to be the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction. So I felt that I was shaking, I was like convulsing, and the phone dropped on the floor on the carpet. It bounced up to dresser level and then went back down. And this episode occurred for about, or continued for about, I don't know, it seemed like maybe 2, 3 minutes. It could have been shorter, but I felt that that was the Holy Spirit. So what I did was I went to the bathroom and I cried. I said, man, after 35 years, 34, 35 years, I beat you, Satan. I beat you, devil. Like God spoke to me, rather than mountains, faith of the size of a mustard seed moving mountains. I had the faith the size of a tennis ball, and planets moved. Jupiter, Saturn conjunction. It's back in 2020. So I go to the bathroom, I look in the mirror, I'm crying with excitement. I did it. I stayed the course. I stayed true. I got this heaviness off my heart. I did it. Thank you, Jesus. I even posted it on Facebook. I never said God or Jesus beforehand because that's quite cheesy, calling a spade a spade. Being in sports my entire career from age 19, well, I played since I was age 12, I played competitively. It's a little cold here, so I got the sniffles. I am in Colorado, and we had a windstorm last night, and it's in the 40s right now, and the wind is quite heavy. And the basement level is always going to be colder. And I asked them to turn the heater off so that I wouldn't get that annoying sound. So as a result, it's a little chilly, but nothing that I won't survive. So yeah, going back to or going forward to my experience, because I did not know what that was. Oh, yeah, sports. So one thing about sports, every athlete, you can show me otherwise, every athlete in the NBA, not every athlete, but predominant NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, WNBA, they always give thanks to God or Jesus for where they are. Or even someone who posts something on an app like a mainstream social media app. If you want to get a lot of likes or shares, just say how great God is to you. And I can assure you, if you say that, you're going to get a lot of share likes or more if you would than you saying the things I'm saying, which is okay. But I never took that bait. Like I don't do clickbait. I'm not going to say something just so you interact with it. I'm not going to do that. If either you're with it or you're not. And then it also shows over the long call, it shows that hey, this brother will stand for what he believed, and he's not cheesy. He's not lame. He's not corny. He don't do that. You know, when I say something, I don't want to. I want to be in the know. I want to be in the know. And I felt I was in the know when I was age. When I was age, excuse me. When I was age 34, I felt I knew some things, especially after that experience. And for about 3 strong weeks, I was reading the Bible, trying to make it make sense with my children, but it was tough for us to get through line by line because they're asking me, they're laughing, you know, a child, their BS meter is fully functional, especially if they haven't been programmed. And they were questioning some things, and I was like, I couldn't even justify it, and I didn't even try because I would never force my belief system or knowings on a child. You have the right to come up with your own deal. Now, I'm going to live in what I know and believe. And of course, that may serve as an example for them to follow suit. But as far as force feeding, not going to do that. Still no. And as I was reading, I remember vividly this brother who would post alternate things on mainstream social media. We had a relationship with each other since I was in the 5th grade. He was in the 6th grade, star athlete, multi sport athlete. And I really didn't speak to him. Well, not really didn't. We didn't converse for decades, but I dialed into him. I said, I see everything you post. I would like to talk to you about that because I felt something totally different. Fighting for my God, not yeah. I'm going to war for my God because that's what it is, war. In fact, the cross is a sigil. It has a deeper meaning than what someone sees as a T. It's actually a sword. It's a sword. Take a look at it. It's a sword. I wanted to not be combative, but legitimately have a discussion. And up on those discussions, I didn't know this stuff existed. We began to speak about, he introduced me to Serapis, Serapis, Ptolemy one Soter, Soter, meaning savior. Definitely research those things. And I also was introduced to, let's say, I don't want to call it history, but knowledge predating Greece. knowledge predating Greco history. And we cannot argue facts. So and this brother who's married with children in another state, he spent hours on the phone with me, hours, because I'm questioning. I'm questioning a lot until before my birthday. I denounced any external force in general, let alone having any let's say guide or having any control of my existence. I denounced that because of the evidence. You need evidence because he made a great point. See, if I want to, I talked about Stonewall Mage, my granddaddy. Okay, I have proof. I have pictures, and I know I'm giving you a firsthand account. This is a firsthand account. Or if we want to go to, let's say, a little bit farther than that, what we know as mummies per se. Now, the legitimacy of those are another thing, but we can, from their account, pull up bones. Okay, that's a receipt, and we can go from there. But when I began to research biblical characters, all I saw was animation, cartoon characters. Research any biblical character, Jesus, Jonah, Noah, Adam, Eve. You're going to get a cartoon character recently drawn just a few decades ago. Now, I said a few decades ago. What is a few? A few to some people can be 100. I got a few $100. Well, I'm saying a few decades ago, as in this is 2023. Well, a few decades ago, King James Charles Stewart's version of the Bible was published just a few decades ago. Also, I was perplexed because I see names in the Bible like Jeremiah, John, Jonah, Jesus. I even seen, what's this gentleman's name? Aaron. 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 I said, hold on now. I said, hold up. Aaron? Paul? Like Aaron though? Aaron is not an ancient name. And you just can't, look up the etymology on it. When did it come into existence? Or for sure Jeremiah or Jesus, because when was the letter J introduced to the English language? So, and this is not to change anybody's mind. That's the original goal that I had when I first learned this. I wanted to teach everybody. Like, free yourself, just read. Because we're going to believe what we believe. But I am an advocate of critical thinking. At least answer me this. If his name was not Jesus, because there was no letter J, then why do you say his name is Jesus? And also tell me the name that it was before it became Jesus. I would like to know that. I think that's quite, no, I don't think. I know that's quite vital to what we believe our eternity hails upon. And when I attempted to have these conversations, because when you do come into a spiritual awakening, that's what I had. Emotions can be erratic to say the least. And combine that with what I continue to experience with parental alienation, now that's twofold at the minimum. Because, of course, I want to teach all my children, which is the great thing about this medium. She can look me up anytime after she's done and hear what her dad is saying about anything. You want to teach your children at least what you know at the rate they can digest it. And with the information being so pertinent, I want to teach everybody. And it came off a certain type of way. I can admit that and evaluate it. But it was from the heart. I don't really care what someone thinks about me. I don't wear Jordans. I've said this before. I don't wear Jordans. Now, if you give them to me, I wear them. I'm not going to buy them. I don't have Rolexes or designer clothes or any of that nonsense that means absolutely nothing to me. It never has. It never will. So I could really care less. I know that whatever I do in connecting heart to heart, you'll be able to feel me from there. Malcolm X, one of my first role models, said, "We ought not condemn." I may be paraphrasing here because there was a time that you didn't know the things you know now or could think as fast as you can think now about certain topics. Paraphrase. Definitely look that quote up. And I would not want anybody to condemn me reaping what we sow because I lack the knowledge on something. Instead of condemning me, teach me. And there are some great teachers. The teacher that originally introduced me to spirituality introduced me because he felt, and I agreed, he knew me from the past and knew that I had a reputation of being so-called, advanced. I was in gifted class. I tested genius really young. And he said that, "Hey, you're moving pretty quick. You may need to look up Seven Bomar." I said, "Cool." And I did that. And when I say the level of knowledge this brother continues to profess, I'm not in a league of comparing myself to anyone, but I do respect him heavily. And there's not too many beings on this planet who I can say, yeah. Nothing else needs to be said. I could just say that. Definitely look him up for yourself. Please do that. So, because I wanted the teacher, that's why I teach. And I teach at the capacity that I'm able. I teach what I know, life, because I was living spiritual, but I didn't know that I was. Because I was following universal laws, cosmic laws, Mayat, MAAT. Definitely research that. And when that occurred, Bobby Hemmett had a quote, "The path," I think it was his quote. I know he said it, but I'm not sure if it's his quote. But the path to wisdom is a lonely one. And here's what I have to say about Christianity or any form of dogma. Christianity specifically, because that's what I have the most experience in. If you would put Jesus or your God before me, and I'm your son, if I'm your brother, if I'm your uncle, if I'm your cousin, if I'm your nephew, if you would put God or Jesus, animated characters, look it up and tell me otherwise, Prove me otherwise. If you will put them before me, then that's going to cause for some evaluating within my paradigm. And if you will put them before me, you will put them before my children. And if you put all of those external forces before my children, how can you have their best interests or mine? And I'm just generally speaking, but these are conversations that we must have. And what is wrong with a conversation? See, I would need to be convinced that a religionist is anything other than closed minded. Because if you're open minded, you don't have an issue with speaking on any topic, or at least listening, or picking up a book and confirming and denying, or using common sense, touching all those circles, me being that child who told my peers that no mundane, I didn't use the word mundane, but no mundane Santa exists. Well, I'm sitting here telling you no sky Santa exists either, unless your belief system will keep that force governing your life. But if you're not even going to abide by what's in there, now, some of the things I'm happy some of us don't abide by, like sacrificing children with a sword or just cutting them or whatever. But you do sacrifice your child if you put the external force before your own child. So I will conclude here. It's getting a little stuffy. I need to go up, do some maintenance and things like that. I can hear it in my voice. I'm draining. It does get a little cool with the heater off down here, So, but hey, I want this transmission to be as clear as possible. I may do a part two. Usually, after I do these streams, I think about something that I left out or I could have included. And if that's the case, we will do that. I sincerely appreciate those of you who were able to partake in this stream with me. Man, it says a lot. I'm doing this live, of course, and I'm always going to look to do challenging things. Not everybody can get on a public platform, a global platform, and speak from the heart. Not everybody can do that. A lot of people have skeletons in their closet, per se. So I feel I have an obligation. I'm obligated to do this. With basketball, sports, the amount of lives that I've encountered on my path, I would be doing them this justice if I remain mute. That's cowardly to remain mute. If you have knowledge of something that can help someone and you choose to keep it to yourself because you are more concerned about how someone will receive it or how you will be viewed, that's cowardly. Now, if you choose to have the knowledge and go live on the top of a mountain and have people come seek you, that's another story. Living on a mountain. There's nothing cowardly about that. So let's just get that straight. But yeah, just with my son and where he's going, my daughters, I'm okay with being the coat over the puddle on the date. I don't want to be the man or a woman. I'll be the coat to protect those feet for the woman. That's what I am for my children. That's what I am for spirituality. That's what I am for higher truths. And that's what men should be. The divine role of a man, the divine masculine, is to be an enforcer of divine law. That's our role. And I will be greater for this, when my time, I don't want to say time, but there will be a moment where I'm going to have to answer for everything I did and did not do. And I would like to say that, I may not have did it to the best of my ability, but I at least put some effort in it. And if I need to improve, if I have to, take another shot to improve, then that's just what I have to do. I'm not gonna make an excuse because I always can do more. But balance is power. Balance is power. Because for as more as you feel you can do, you're likely doing X amount more than the next being who is capable. Again, this is not a contest to see who's doing what more or less. It's about fulfilling your heart. And with me, as I organically stated in the beginning, the first two video streams I did, we seen the evolution of the microphone because at first I had it to the side with the cover, the soundproof dip, whatever. I don't even know the names and stuff. I bought what I felt would be decent enough for a transmission. And the mic was too far away. I brought it closer. I realized I still wasn't really speaking loud enough or wasn't being received loud enough. So now I put it in front of me and I will evaluate this as well. I will eventually, potentially, get to the point where I'm doing screen shares and open the call up for, transmissions or just, whatever the case may be. But I know there are many of us out there who feel like we don't want to be wrong a lot of times. That's ego. That's egotistical. Now, ego is not a negative thing. In fact, ego is what's allowing us to breathe right now. Ego is what allows us to breathe right now. I don't advise you do this. I don't. But if you ever want to test that theory, stop breathing and let's see what happens. Ego is going to make sure you breathe. So I am grateful. Thank you so much for dialing in, and we will be forward. Wholeness.